You know that incredibly specific, really visceral sound?
Oh, you mean the spine crack?
Yes. You're sitting at a desk, you press down, and you just hear the sharp crack of the spine on a brand new 10-pound, $200 textbook.
Right, and it always happens right before the semester starts.
Exactly. And you read chapter one, you're trying to absorb the material,
Mm.
and you realize the clinical examples they're using are already like 5 years out of date.
Yeah, it's so
It
frustrating.
really is. It's practically a historical document the very moment it rolls off the printing press.
I mean, it is the definition of built-in obsolescence.
Totally.
We've just kind of accepted that financial and physical weight for decades as, well, just the unavoidable cost of doing business and education.
Right.
But we are finally hitting a breaking point where the medium is actively working against the mission of learning.
And that brings us straight to our grounding material today. We are doing a deep dive into a Top Kit Digest issue focused on advancing student learning through technology-based pedagogy.
Yeah, specifically highlighting some fascinating work out of SUNY Delhi.
Right, from Dr. Barbara Andiana and Dr. Beth Boyd. They're nursing leadership professors there. And, well, the mission of this deep dive for you, our listener, is to explore this really fundamental shift in how we learn.
Which is basically ditching that giant, outdated traditional textbook for technology.
Exactly, but doing it without losing an ounce of academic rigor. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand why this shift is so urgent, we really have to talk about a hidden pedagogical flaw in traditional textbooks.
Yeah, it's something we don't often think about.
The digest references this video tip titled, "Why is Technology Important in Education?" And it highlights a word I never really associated with reading, which is isolation.
Well, isolation is like the invisible tax on traditional pedagogy.
How so?
Think about the mechanical act of reading a physical textbook. It literally requires you to cut yourself off from your environment. You're just interpreting static text on a page entirely by yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Right. It reduces interactive learning experiences to zero during the actual consumption phase.
Which is crazy when you consider how we operate today.
Exactly. The modern learner's brain is completely networked. The sources point out that textbook popularity is naturally waning because, well, students are already communicating, debating, and, synthesizing info on social platforms and multimedia every single day.
Right, it's a jarring transition. You spend your whole day in this dynamic, highly connected ecosystem, and then you step into a learning environment.
And suddenly you're cut off.
Yeah, whether that's a college course or, I don't know, corporate training, you're handed a brick of paper and told to go sit in a silent corner.
It doesn't make any sense.
To me, relying solely on a textbook is like watching a massive championship game alone in a dark room.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like you see the events unfold, but you're missing the energy, the analysis, the shared experience. Tech-based learning is like a watch party where everyone's talking, reacting, and collaborating in real time.
Yeah, it's a completely different vibe.
But I do have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
If we lean heavily into multimedia and social platforms just to, match how people live on their phones,
Yeah.
don't we risk sacrificing the actual meat and rigor of the subject?
The entertainment versus education debate.
Exactly. It sounds like we might just be prioritizing entertainment over the hard, frustrating work of deep learning.
What's fascinating here is that adapting to a learner's preferred medium is not about diluting the material at all.
It's not.
No, it is simply about removing the artificial barrier of isolation. The rigor remains exactly the same, only the vehicle changes.
Okay, so the content is still tough, just delivered differently.
Right. The goal is to place multimedia content as the preferred choice to deliver that exact same substantive rigor, but doing it in a way that actually capitalizes on how human beings prefer to process information.
Which is collaboratively.
Exactly. We are social learners.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because removing that barrier sounds great in theory, but making that leap without losing the academic guardrails requires a serious blueprint.
You definitely need a plan.
And the digest highlights Trebion's model as the framework for this shift.
Yeah, Trebion's model is really the gold standard here.
And the entire philosophy of this model is built on a student-centered approach. Step one is literally giving the learners a voice in selecting the actual technology-based resources.
Which throws a lot of people off.
I mean, yeah. Asking the students what tech to use feels like letting the diners dictate what tools the chef uses in the kitchen.
That's a very traditional way to look at it.
But if they're there to learn, Why are they picking the tools? I mean, they don't know the subject yet.
It seems counterintuitive until you look at the psychology of adult learning.
Okay, walk me through that.
When you mandate a tool from the top down, the learner instinctively adopts a passive posture. They become just consumers of your curriculum.
Like, just tell me what to read so I can pass.
Right. Tribbion's model completely flips that dynamic. By seeking their input on the why, the what, and the how of the technology being used, you shift them from passive consumers to active participants.
Oh, okay. That sounds kind of like the IKEA effect applied to
It's
education.
the IKEA effect.
Yeah, when you assemble a piece of furniture yourself, you value it significantly more because you put sweat equity into it.
Oh, absolutely. That is spot on.
If learners actually help build the technological framework of the course, they can't easily dismiss it. They have this, psychological ownership over the process.
That is the exact mechanism at play here. Their engagement just skyrockets because they are suddenly co-architects of the experience.
But that naturally introduces a massive friction point, doesn't it?
Uh-oh, what's that?
Well, if you just let students pick whatever tools they want, you risk complete chaos.
Oh, sure.
You could end up with a highly fragmented tech stack that violates university policies, or worse, creates cybersecurity nightmares.
Which is why buy-in has to be balanced with boundaries. You can't just have a free-for-all.
Right. So step 2 is the absolute necessity of conducting a rigorous IT assessment. This is where you determine what the technology needs to do, who will use it, and what they will use it for.
The practical stuff.
Yeah. But the most crucial part of this assessment is defining what the technology cannot be used for.
Oh, I love that idea of defining the negative space. Saying what a tool cannot be used for actually provides a lot of clarity.
It really does. It drives creativity through subtraction. If you give learners infinite possibilities, they often just freeze.
Yeah, the paradox of choice.
Exactly.
Right.
If you provide a defined sandbox saying, we are using this platform for peer review, but you absolutely cannot use it to submit final exams, you remove all the ambiguity.
The technology has to fit the practical reality of how the institution actually operates.
Right. It has to play nice with the existing systems.
But wait, if you just spent all this time building their trust and getting their buy-in during step 1, and then you come down with a strict list of IT boundaries, don't you risk alienating them?
That is a danger, yeah. How do you enforce those boundaries without just killing the momentum?
By avoiding top-down mandates. This brings us to step 3, which focuses heavily on two-way communication.
Okay.
You have to clearly communicate the value of the boundaries. And two-way communication doesn't just mean sending out an email blast and hoping they read it.
Which never works anyway.
Right. It means actively seeking feedback, asking open-ended questions, and directly addressing concerns.
So treating them like adults.
Exactly. If a student wants to use a specific app that fails the IT assessment, you don't just say no. You explain the data privacy concerns and ask them to help find a secure alternative that achieves the same goal.
So you keep them in the co-architect role even when you have to say no.
Always. You never shut down the collaboration. And because you are constantly communicating, you naturally transition into the final phase of Tribbion's model, which is assessing success.
Step 4.
Right. You have to measure if this new tech-based ecosystem is actually working. The framework emphasizes using both formative and summative feedback to guide these efforts.
Okay, let's define those for a second, because that sounds like a bit of academic jargon.
Fair enough.
Summative feedback is pretty straightforward, right? That is the traditional final exam.
Yeah.
Like the autopsy at the end of the term to see what happened and grade the performance.
Exactly. Summative is the final judgment. But formative feedback is where technology truly shines in this model.
How so?
Formative assessments are the ongoing, low-stakes pulse checks throughout the learning process. It is the real-time data that tells you a student is struggling with a concept before they fail that final exam.
Oh, that's incredibly useful.
Yeah, and when you move away from a static textbook and into a digital ecosystem, formative feedback becomes almost instantaneous.
And to make sure faculty aren't just flying blind when setting this all up, the digest details some heavily utilized top-tier resources, right?
Yes, they have some great tools.
They mentioned a faculty development decision guide to help instructors build an action plan, checklists, and rubrics to maintain quality control in blended courses, and even frameworks for finding actual data sources on campus to prove this method works.
It's basically a comprehensive safety net for educators who are making a very intimidating leap.
But theory and safety nets are great for whiteboards. Let's see if this survives contact with a high-stakes, real-world environment.
The ultimate test.
Right. The digest provides a brilliant case study from Professors Dinah and Boyd in their nursing leadership courses at SUNY Delhi. And you really don't get much higher stakes than healthcare.
No, you definitely don't. It is an environment where outdated information isn't just an academic failure, it is a literal clinical danger.
Wow, yeah.
The professors realized that the healthcare landscape changes so rapidly that expensive printed textbooks were completely failing their primary mission.
Because they take so long to publish.
Exactly. The information was stale before the students even bought the book.
Using a printed textbook to teach modern nursing leadership is like trying to navigate a cross-country road trip using a folded-up map from 1995.
You'd be lost instantly.
You're going to miss a lot of newly built highways, or worse, you're going to confidently drive right off a bridge that just doesn't exist anymore.
That is the exact liability they faced. So they applied Trebian's model and completely replaced the traditional textbook.
But like completely.
Completely. Not just supplemented it, but removed it entirely. In its place, they integrated on-demand Lorman webinars into an asynchronous learning environment.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of how that actually replaces a textbook. When we talk about on-demand Lorman webinars, we aren't just talking about a professor talking to a webcam, right?
No. These are professional-grade, constantly updated digital seminars.
And they're typically used by practicing professionals for continuing education.
Right.
And asynchronous means the students aren't forced into a lecture hall at a specific time. They can consume this material on their own schedule.
Which is huge for adult learners.
But how do you actually study from a webinar? I mean, you can't exactly take a yellow highlighter to a video file.
Well, that is where the pedagogical shift happens. Instead of passively highlighting text, the students interact with the material actively.
What does that look like?
They pause the seminars, they cross-reference the data with current clinical guidelines in real time, and they synthesize the information through detailed reflective questions assigned by the professors.
So they are dissecting the information, not just memorizing it.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this nursing case study perfectly synthesizes every theoretical point we just discussed.
It really does. It solved the isolation problem by bringing in diverse, real-world expert voices through those webinars.
Yep.
And they maintained a pulse check on the current state of the industry, basically acting like a live GPS for the students.
And we really cannot ignore the administrative victory here either.
Oh, right, the
Yeah.
cost.
They maintained absolute academic rigor. They optimized the learning outcomes by exposing students to outside experts they would never normally have access to, and it drastically reduced the materials cost for the students.
That's amazing.
In fact, utilizing these digital resources cost the college nothing extra to implement.
Zero cost, which completely shatters the myth that innovating your teaching style requires massive budget approvals.
It absolutely does.
So what was the student reaction?
Oh, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Through those reflective questions you mentioned earlier, the students consistently praised the webinars.
I bet they felt a lot more engaged.
They did. They felt connected to the actual profession they were about to enter, rather than feeling trapped in an academic bubble.
Okay, so integrating professional webinars is clearly a fantastic strategy for bringing in high-level expertise and current data.
For sure.
But what about the day-to-day instruction? How do you teach the daily, granular nuts and bolts of a subject in a textbook-free world?
For the day-to-day stuff, you transition to targeted, faculty-created video content.
Okay. The digest outlines specific best practices for using video to build an engaging learning environment. The core advantage is that video replaces those static, often confusing concept models you find in textbooks with dynamic visual demonstration.
Which is huge for cognitive load.
Massive.
If you are a visual or auditory learner, staring at a two-dimensional diagram of a complex process can be incredibly frustrating. Watching a process unfold visually while someone explains it audibly connects those neural pathways much faster.
It just makes intuitive sense.
So what does this all mean for the person actually teaching? Does replacing the textbook mean I have to become a full-time content creator?
Oh, definitely not.
Because it sounds like I might need a 3-point lighting setup, a high-end microphone, and, hours of editing time just to explain a single concept.
This raises an important question, and it touches on a fascinating shift in how we perceive credibility today.
The answer is absolutely no. You don't need a studio. The digest specifically highlights that smartphones and standard tablets offer all the necessary tools to create these videos at no additional cost.
But really, doesn't a low-fidelity smartphone video feel a bit, I don't know, cheap for a rigorous academic course?
We have to look at the pedagogical psychology of modern media consumption.
Okay, lay it on me.
We are seeing a massive cultural shift from authority to authenticity. Highly polished, studio-quality videos often feel corporate, distant, and just overly scripted.
They feel like an infomercial.
Exactly. But a professor holding a smartphone, enthusiastically explaining a concept in their office or out in the field, it signals approachability.
Ah.
It lowers the affective filter of the student. They feel like they're being spoken to by a human mentor, not broadcasted at by an institution.
Authenticity over authority. I really love that. It
Yeah.
actually cures the isolation problem we talked about at the very beginning.
It brings the human element back.
So if the production value isn't the main focus, what are the actual best practices for making these videos effective?
Well, the digest lays out a few non-negotiable rules. First, keep the videos brief and highly targeted.
No hour-long monologues.
Right. Focus on one specific learning goal per video. Second, make sure your audio and visual elements are complementary, not redundant.
Meaning, do not put a massive paragraph of text on the screen and then just read it out loud word for word.
Yes. That is a primary violation of cognitive load theory.
It's the worst.
The human brain cannot seamlessly process reading text and listening to the exact same text simultaneously without causing friction.
So what should you do instead?
Let the visual element demonstrate the concept. Show the diagram, show the physical object, and let your voice provide the nuanced explanation.
What else? How do we keep their attention on the right things?
Through signaling, you have to actively guide the learner's attention to what matters most.
How does signaling actually work in practice?
Visually, it could be physically pointing to a part of a model, using a digital tool to circle a key term on the screen, or just zooming in on a specific detail.
And audibly.
Audibly, it is changing your tone of voice or explicitly saying, this next step is where most people make a mistake.
Yeah.
You are providing cognitive signposts so they don't have to guess what is important.
And the delivery itself.
Keep it conversational and enthusiastic. Bring your actual personality into the recording.
Like we're doing now.
Exactly. And most importantly, you cannot just post a video file to a dashboard and walk away. You have to embed these videos within the context of active learning.
Right, because otherwise we were just replacing passive reading with passive watching.
Exactly. You wrap the video in interactivity. You provide guiding questions they need to answer while watching.
Or link it to an assignment.
Yes, you link the video directly to an interactive homework assignment where they immediately apply the concept. The video should be a catalyst for action.
And the digest points out that this strategy goes far beyond just replacing lectures, right? Video basically becomes the primary connective tissue of the course.
It really does. You use video for faculty and student introductions to build a human connection on day one.
Nice.
You record a visual tour of the digital course space so they know how to navigate the environment. You use it to clarify assignment directions.
That saves a lot of confused emails.
And incredibly, you can use quick videos for immediate formative feedback. If you notice a dozen students struggling with the same concept on a Tuesday, you can record a 3-minute smartphone video addressing that specific confusion and push it out to the class by Wednesday morning.
You can never do that with a textbook. The agility of this pedagogy is what makes it so incredibly powerful.
It's completely responsive to the learner.
So let's pull all these threads together for you, the listener. Whether you are actively teaching a team, upskilling for a major career pivot, or just someone who wants to understand how the landscape of information is changing, grasping this shift is vital.
It really is everywhere now.
The core lesson here is to seek out or intentionally build active, multimodal learning environments.
Because we are witnessing a true paradigm shift. Technology-based pedagogy, when guided by frameworks like Trebion's model, isn't about chasing the newest software trend.
No, it's much deeper than that.
It is a targeted cure for the isolation of traditional solo reading. It provides a mechanism to keep data fiercely current in fields where outdated information is a liability, and it dramatically reduces financial barriers for the learner.
And perhaps most fundamentally, it transforms the learner from a passive receiver of static information into an active, invested co-creator of their own educational journey.
Which leaves us with a highly provocative final thought to ponder.
Well, I'm ready.
Throughout this analysis, we've seen the source material push relentlessly towards student empowerment. If technology now allows learners to collaborate on choosing their own tech stacks, if they can access global experts asynchronously, and if they can use their own devices to provide real-time feedback and shape the curriculum, how long until the traditional concept of the teacher completely morphs?
Morphs into what?
into a role much closer to a community manager or a curator for a decentralized network of learners.
Wow.
We are moving toward a reality where the educator is no longer the sole bottleneck of knowledge standing at the front of a room, but rather the architect of a highly collaborative, self-sustaining ecosystem.
From cracking the spine of a 10-pound textbook in total silence to curating a living, decentralized network of active minds, that is an evolution worth watching. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.